Well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for making my transition to this beautiful city. Great. Bring greetings from sunny New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico. And then I also want to thank Dr. Crawford and also a special lady, Miss Terry Morris. Am I right? Yes. She put me up in a beautiful hotel. Let me tell you, the pillows were soft. The bed was really great. I nearly overslept. So I want to say thank you so much. Can you guys hear me properly? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm really glad to be here because I really enjoy, when I saw this job being advertised, I told myself I could really do this job. And so what I'll try to do is, in the 15-minute period in terms of the Q&A, you can ask me anything you want. Anything you want, pertaining to academics or personally, or my personal self. And so my presentation is going to be in two parts. The first part is going to be dealing with what institutions believe or think inclusion should be or diversity should be. And secondly, what I think I can bring to the table in terms of the position that is being advised or advertised. I do believe that if you look at my presentation, in terms, I'm truly a transformational leader. I'm also a transactional leader. If you look at you see that I have the aspect of teamwork. I also have that bird called Sankofa in Akan, or the African proverb that means taking something from the back or from what is traditional from your back and bringing it forward to be progressive. So I do believe that everybody is a leader within their own sphere of influence. So by that I do mean that we do have autocratic leaders, we do have democratic leaders, we do have leaders who are transactional, we do have leaders who are transformational, we do have leaders who are laissez-faire. Is the choice is your own choice. But your choice could either be good or be negative depending on your academic environment or environment and how you deal with people. So with this job, what I have to say is, what is the change that I'm trying to bring about? Or how are you trying to do it? Who needs to help you ensure that the change process is complete, that is being progressive or meaningful? Obviously, how it works in terms of assessments. And once the assessment has been conducted, how do you improve the process and strategies for change? To me, I do believe in reading Donald Walters in graduate school that leadership is always supportive. Leadership always involves others. Leadership always influences philosophy. I think it's always being ahead of the pack and also provides service to others. Arthur Chickering talks about human development being a unifying force for self. So if you're in higher education, that means you must be a unifying force. I'm using the word unifying because it's important in terms of responses to things that might happen, challenges, benefits, weaknesses, and strengths of a setup that you are in. By that I do mean that you're making others grounded while also providing for positive self-image regarding scholarship and intellectualism. I also believe that I've read a lot on political science and philosophy. I've read things on Thomas Adler, 6 ideas of being a leader and all. I think all of us have read a lot or written things on leadership. But I do believe that we have two types of leaders in this world. We have linear thinkers and secular thinkers. Linear thinkers actually believe in the status quo. Secular thinkers believe in being progressive. But I think what needs to be done is that we must be able to always negotiate space and always be able to also negotiate common sense goals or values. So in my role as director or anywhere I've worked in terms of Minnesota and New Mexico, I've always tried to establish a culture of evidence, a culture of excellence that is deep and also sophisticated, but also committed to students and the establishment or the institution that I work with or for. I need to be able to inspire individuals, my team, towards a worthy goal. Also, leadership for me also means service and creativity in times of lean times or tough times or good times, and being meaningful towards work. Because if I don't have purpose and meaning for my work, then actually I don't set the tone. I think I can't really ensure that we're on the same page. I can't really communicate clearly what I want in terms of my vision and goals. I can't hold teams accountable for the establishment or the organization of myself. I can never create a learning community. But I do believe that if I'm able to do all these things, that means I'm providing understanding for common sense values, healthiness in a particular environment. I'm also providing loyalty for those that I work for or with. I'm also enlightening discourse that should be very authentic and not corrupted. So once we have done things or we understand the aspect of culture or providing safe place for difficult dialogues, I think to me we're also providing or creating self-expression with confidence that is idealistic. Also, we are enhancing intellectual discourse that is guided by wisdom. Dr. Cornel West talks about in one of his books that always telling your colleagues or students that you are a brother or you're a sister. So when Dr. Crawford was leaving me at the hotel, I said, "Thank you, Brother Crawford." I didn't say Dr. Crawford, I said Brother Crawford, because he done a service for me. Rosmarin also talks about building trust in opinions, whether you agree or disagree with them. In terms of language, which Amina talks about, always providing for groundedness in group decision making, because many times literature or discourse in America or elsewhere, discourse is often corrupted or have corrupted beliefs. You must always, I do believe in that, I think we have to provide space for varied experiences and many experiences of people who are coming to the table. Going back to Arthur Chickering, if I'm able to create the aspect of human development, then I'm bringing meaningful roles for students, others alike. I'm bringing peace to a particular environment, and I'm going to say one more time, bringing peace to a particular environment and also bringing realistic understanding to that particular environment. I'm a cheerleader for change. I believe in that communication also brings in positiveness when language is pure or it has integrity. When Villapando and Solorzano talk about focusing on the barriers or obstacles that devalue pluralism and multiculturalism or diversity. Because a lot of people really don't like the aspect of pluralism or inclusion. You know, scholars have written since 1930s, Redfield and etc., about alienation, isolation, integration, and Cross has written about pre-encounter, encounter, immersion. Coakley has written, contemporary scholars have written about the aspect of diversity, which is pluralism. And so we must need to understand the complexities of higher education and the varying levels of students that students bring into our environment and the aspirations or desire for them to become educated or to experience a particular environment. Whether we bring whatever strategies that we bring up, I don't think should be penalized because we are creative people. If you're not creative people, you'll not be in this room. Tinto talks about once we've done all those assessments and we come up with those ideas, we are actually generating a culture of evidence. That's really important. We're also generating skills and capacities needed for change in our environment, just across the border. Your sisters or your brothers in the next state are having issues. I hope you guys don't want it here. I don't think you want it here, because everybody wants a good name for themselves or their state. Once we have done all these things, in terms of assessment and measures needed, both qualitative or quantitative, Seller talks about, we know our strengths and we know our weaknesses. So once we know our strengths and weaknesses, we need to fill in those gaps that exist to rebuild the academic community and individuals who want to help build that academic community. We need faculty who have the mechanisms or the know-how or skills to do those effective analysis, understanding in terms of personal issues or issues that involve our diverse students. All students or all peoples need cohesion, communication, and we do need a sense of belonging. Missouri didn't have a sense of belonging. It had Festus for so long and just went out of hand. So I do believe that coming here in terms of being a director, I must be able to infuse multiple perspectives within the curriculum if it can be given, both informally and informally. As a director, I meet students and I ask them how they are, what is going. That's informal teaching. I'm not in the classroom, but I'm bringing my experience that is varied. If I meet somebody from the tutoring center or from the housing department or from the financial aid department or from the admissions department, I'm trying to give myself that I can help you get there. In fact, that's what I've done in Minnesota and New Mexico. In Mexico, in the Midwest, we practice something we call the STEP program. The STEP means sociocultural. You go to areas where others would not go. Wisconsin would not go, Iowa would not go, so we go. So we used to go to Brother Rice, heart of the ghetto. The Rice is an all-boys black high school, Hispanic black high school, having Irish priests taken care of, and then we have King High School in the ghetto also. We used to go to Juneau High School. In Las Cruces, I go as far as Oakland. So I recruit, besides other students I recruit gangsters, Crips, Bloods, disciples, vice lords, and I make them into scholars. It's important that we turn our students into scholars. But besides making them into scholars, we must also turn them into citizens who can provide. So the question that I ask is, what am I trying to do, or what are we trying to do? So when we deepen scholarship or we create new knowledge that students learn multiple perspectives, we're actually re-energizing faculty staff also. Schwartz and Andrew Harker talk about moving from philosophical resistance or privilege to the aspect of psychological inclusion. I'm going to repeat it one more time. Moving from philosophical resistance of privilege to the aspect of psychological inclusion. That means we're enhancing multi-dimensional approaches to the academia. It's very important. Information that is really relevant. Because if we cannot empower our students or teach them things that are different, I'm not saying we should take out everything. No, that's totally impossible. Because we have to learn about Abraham Lincoln and all those folks. We have to learn about those in power. It's important. We have to learn about culture. We have to learn about the isms that exist, religion. We have to learn about idealism. We have to learn about sexuality, GLBTQ. We have to learn about all those things. How do we know that we've been successful in terms of highlighting student learning outcomes? There's nothing wrong with learning outcomes. When I was in Minnesota, there's a lady called Dr. Sue Rankin who came to our institution in Minnesota. And he did this program whereby we had to assessment in terms of believing you are white, believing that you are black, believing that you're bicultural. And so we did it. And at that time, we didn't have an LGBTQ office. And here where we have a boss, a VP. Actually, she was a VP, I think so, provost, I think for diversity. Powerful lady, the fourth most powerful person in the state of Minnesota. She's GLBT, or she's lesbian, and she's talking about all this lesbian stuff, all these isms. And I looked at her quietly, because we did all this assessment, we've done all this, and it just hit me. Well, this is a powerful lady, she's a lesbian, and we don't have a lesbian GLBTQ office. And I'm thinking, Festus, if I tell this one in a meeting one day, am I going to get fired? So I had a discussion with my colleagues, So we had that discussion, we met. So they went, we got to do this, we got to do that. So anybody has a question to ask? I say, yeah, Doc. Doc, you know, you're a powerful lady in the state of Minnesota. You're a lesbian, but we don't have no LGBTQ office here. But you have the resource to make it happen. Why is it not happening? She just looked at me or glared at me and said, Festus, you know, you've asked a great question. You know what? It's going to happen. And it did happen. So sometimes, again, we have to take risks. We have to provide a framework for interconnectedness in academia, enriching outreach programs that support expanded curricula, extracurricular activities or curriculum. So for me, sometimes I ask our student leaders that if you say you want to be a student leader, have you gone to clean the graveyard of people who passed away, say of the Buffalo Soldiers? Have you gone to a homeless shelter to go do service there? Have you really gone to the homeless shelter to do service? So to me, I think now moving to mission and statements, in terms of my values, in terms of being part of this office here, is that I think you guys have your core values, or so your core mission for the university. And you have so many documents and vision statements and value statements, strategic planning, strategies. But the question that we should all ask ourselves, what sort of diversity do you guys really want? I know what I want, and I can tell you the definition of my meaning of diversity. It's a dynamic phenomenon that is never static, is ongoing, and should always be expanded. And our 4 belief systems that before these things can happen, certain things need to be taken into consideration. You know, being a PhD or having some letters behind your name sometimes means something, but sometimes means nothing too. Because you could be as stupid as anybody, honestly. So I do believe knowledge is ongoing. It should be a lifelong thing. So it should be a lifelong pursuit of learning fostered through creative and critical interaction with others. Because sometimes we hear people who are really educated saying stupid things. Fidelity, unifying the diverse forms of knowledge, which is the pursuit of truth. You can never have a multicultural center that window dresses. It doesn't make sense, because in the shortest possible time you would have it, but in the long term it will fizzle. Because America still deals with the aspect of politics of association and assimilation. Now we're in a period of assimilation. We have integrated, honestly. I told the group who before you guys that, just think about it, all of you in this room. During the Civil War, General Lee or Jefferson Davis had 1 hour. Just think about it. 1 hour to get into DC to defeat Lincoln. 1 hour or 1 day. Let me just push it to 1 day. 1 day on a doorstep in DC. Now, Lincoln brought the most craziest general to defend DC. But the guy had read. He was not just a drunkard. He had really read. He knew the South, he knew the North. He was alcoholic. He was promiscuous. But he was a, excuse my language, damn good soldier. But he knew people. That was his secret. He knew people. So he was able to defeat the South. Just imagine, had the South won, where do you think you and I would be today? Everybody in this room, if you're here today and listening to my words, you will not be here. I don't care whether you are white, green, Hispanic, polka dot, pink, purple, you will not be here. Because you are interested in togetherness. The South was not interested in togetherness. They were interested in something else. So we need to understand that. But we don't read more. But if you really do read more and delve into who we are and what we are, you'll find out the South. So the aspect of really understanding who we are and what we are, we understand the aspect of justice. The affirmation of equality, dignity, respect, valuing both our differences and similarities, and personal responsibility to the office. What's the vision I have for KU's multicultural office? You know, you guys are doing something that is really dynamic in terms of turn of oppression. I really want it to be expanded. As I talk about culture of excellence that is deep and rooted. You have people who come to it a lot, but you know, you have surrounding states who are going through issues. So we could be the cradle of information, cradle of really understanding, cradle of really something that is inspiring, to something that is important. I think once we've been able to create that, when we have those benchmarks in terms of assessments that are, we can do real well qualitative studies. Qualitative studies could be really small or be big. For every program that we put together, who are we trying to serve? Why are we really serving those students? Are they a necessity? We must answer those questions to our SWOT analysis. Because we know our strengths, we know our weaknesses, we know our opportunities within and without, we know our threats within and outside. Is it financial? Is it fundraising? Is it because people are just purely really egocentric that they really don't feel that it's not really necessary? We need to recognize that students on one-on-one basis, we can give attention to them as well as giving to groups of students. Be part and parcel of a voice in classes, doing presentations. We need to have a lecture series. We need to have what we call brown bags within the office itself. We need to have allies who can do lecture series. We need to bring people from the outside. We need to find a way in which we can build funds, bring in funds to support the office. Because, once people are getting students in here, Tinto and others could talk about engagement. Right from the door, we understand that we are bringing customers. So we have to provide service that is lifelong. We need to help them prepare for the future in terms of careers. So we have a clear-cut vision of the future and the state of that particular organization. I truly don't want an office that is going to be window dressed. So I'm really intentional. I'm truly an intentional person. I can be intense, but I think I'm also laissez-faire in the aspect that once things are going, we can really make things happen. We need to provide an aspect of a sense of belonging, being creative. If we fail in that, in providing a sense of belonging, then it's not happening. We are just window dressing that office. We need to, our goals and vision needs to be realistic. It needs to be believable. Anyway, I'm going to tell students, listen, they say 70% white. Well, don't worry, it's white. They'll learn about us. They'll come to us. So for my students, I tell them, well, the Irish call something stomping. We call something stepping. So we're going to teach each other. So the Greeks, for example, we have a stepping competition among the Greeks. And actually, in the state of New Mexico, the team that always won is from Denver. It's a white group. I think we're brothers and sisters. Hey, they beat you at your own game. So it is something but it's also healthy competition. That is diversity, pluralism, and inclusion at its best. Now, if you see another person on campus and I'm trying to integrate or have interconnect networks with my colleagues, and I'm not even saying hello and I'm passing by, I become a shadow unto myself and my office. Because either I've devalued them or disrespect them in terms of our meeting. Because the African American calls something sankofa, that it brings something from the back and brings it to the present. You can't bypass. The Native Americans have it. We all have it. Irish, Italians, how you doing? It's important that we interconnect. Because literature says that. I just said, we all associates to this particular institutions as educators. We must be able to attract a diverse group of students that will be really reflective in the coming years 50, the Chinese plan 100 years in advance. I think we just planned on 5 years. That is a shame. We need to plan 50 years. And I'm telling you the story, and I don't know if I told this group. Manning Marable came to our office, and he wanted to discuss something on diversity or inclusion. And this room, about the same amount of people in this room. So he was asking of faculty, staff, and students. They had about 40 students there who knew Martin Luther King, who knew Cesar Chavez, who knew Malcolm X and others. You know, in that room of 40, 45 people, a third of the Hispanic students didn't know who Cesar Chavez was. 8 African-American students didn't know who Martin Luther King was. Half the room didn't know who Malcolm was. Guess what? 50 or 100 years from now, we have an issue. Because if our children and grandchildren don't know who these people are, and they have not learned the history of themselves in terms of how we become altruistic and how we really want to become together, then we failed. We're going to be slitting our throats. So curriculum infusion is important. It's really important. Trust in students and faculty staff to make clear decisions or take positions are important, whether we like it or not. As an administrator, I need to be a social architect by creating shared meanings for students in an academic environment. I think in the larger context of the university, I must be able to raise consciousness in individuals so as to transcend one's own selfish interest. I think things that we need to provide in terms of embrace diversity and inclusiveness. I think curriculum transformation should include perspectives or sources, and we'll have to model inquiry let out of the academe or discourse. Because intentionally, if you have a university, liberal arts, and it's not being taught, and you have 15 African-American students and 8 of them don't know who Martin Luther King was, then it's a shame. Because then how can we talk to white students or others? Should they really learn about it? Is it of essence? Because you don't know yourself, then why should they learn about you? So it's important that we learn about ourselves. We need to provide structures that link diversity initiatives together with institutional goals and mission statements and core values that we stand for. People talk about community, but I ask this question. If I have to ask the room in this question, when does the president have coffee with you? When do leaders in among groups in Greeks have tea with the provost? You have to tell the provost, boss, okay. You know, so this is what we need to do. I'll try and conclude here by saying that we need to enhance intercultural competence on campus, because you do have a ton of expression. It needs to be expanded. We need to address inequity that provides for equity and social justice. That means we need to have a lecture series. We need to have brown bags, presentations by people. We need to have student groups, faculty, or individuals outside the academic environment who can really engage us in terms of what we feel is important. And we need to engage the campus community in terms of hiring folks who can bring pluralism or multiculturalism or what I call it spice to the university. Always remember spice. Now let me tell you something. If I really want to date Dr. Crawford's sister, and Dr. Crawford's sister lives in his grandmother's home, I'm really going to visit Dr. Crawford's sister, not because I like his sister. I'm trying to engage Dr. Crawford and his sister in a particular environment. But I'm truly going to his sister's home because of the grandmother's cooking. It's a strange analogy, am I right? I want to date his sister, but the sister does not live with Dr. Crawford. He lives with his grandmother. The grandmother is the food that I want. People are coming here because of sense of belonging. I could date Dr. Crawford's sister. It's a stupid analogy. To mean anything, it can either really be serious or it could really end. So there must be a particular spice in that environment. That's the sense of belonging. The jambalaya that I'm going to eat in that particular kitchen would always make me go back. Eventually, I might marry your sister. It's important. That's how students feel. So what is it in here that we can really bring to the table? We have to add spice. So we need our external partners, our alumni, who can really help us support. I think one of the things that I've told my colleagues, or those that I'm going to be working for, that it's never an easy job to do. We have to take care of self. You have to feed the soul, nourish the body. But I do believe that if I have made that choice to really be the director for this particular office, then I must embrace all the challenges, all the issues, all the complexities that come with it. I'm going to challenge my bosses that is needed. Because if it's not needed, then honestly, I'm going to end here. If it's not really needed, just look across the state. Whatever happens there would happen here. So I want to say thank you for having me. And I can ask any question you want, and I'm prepared for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we're going to have about 15 minutes for that, so just raise your hand. We don't have a mic there, so try to speak it loud, and I'll repeat it for the camera.
Don't get shy. Ask any question you want. Yes?
I have two, but I'll ask my second one later. So my first question is, 2 weeks ago, KU hosted Quest, which was like an LGBT leadership summit, which I attended, and we had a conversation about how the current kind of thoughts of leadership, the current models of leadership are inaccessible to underrepresented voices, because leadership was basically built for people who, basically people that are in the majority. Like, it was built for people that have privilege. So you talk a lot about leadership. I'm wondering if, given the position of director of the OMA, how will you make leadership accessible to all identities?
Well, I think I have an open door policy, number one. So the question you used, that inaccessible. I think I'm always accessible. Two, I think for the people that I work with, that is my colleagues in the Office of Multicultural Services, we need to be aware that students are here because of us. We also, second, we are also role models, and also instructors and advocates. So we need to be voices. Because, like I said, I had a boss who was GLBTQ. She talked about it a lot of times, but she didn't do anything. So I had to challenge her. Say, well, Doc, you know, I work for you, and you are the most powerful person in the state of Minnesota. She's not the president of Northern New Mexico. But you know, you're talking about, but you have the money, you're not providing it, so provide it. Let's see, you know, so you need to do it. And so initially she was taken aback. So sometimes I find a way in which you can talk to your bosses, but I know for students sometimes in that mode that we want this now. So I think the question is also finding a space where you can have debates. So as students, you must also have a debating society, or a little commons whereby you can talk about ourselves or the institution as a whole. So it's important that we have that cohesion and aspect of language or discourse or discussion. And so maybe once a month, GLBTQ can meet with the ethnic programs or other Greeks in society, both fraternity and sororities, whatever, and talk about why they don't respect you or how they are scared of you and things like that. So then we have that honest discussion. So I think that's important that those things happen. So I'm always accessible, and I think the office should be accessible too. Yes, sir.
There are people on this campus who, student, staff, and faculty, who believe that discrimination based on racism or hate-based behavior on this campus does not exist. How would you speak to that population?
Oh, racism always exists, because if it doesn't exist, then we'll not have issues around the campus, around Missouri. So I said we could just use Missouri as an example. It always exists. Maybe it's not coming out. Why are they saying? Because they are privileged. They don't want to either hear it, but they do exist. Because language or power, the power of oppression or power of privilege, says you need to devalue or disrespect. So the way in which it doesn't exist, how do you know it doesn't exist? Because maybe they have not really experienced it. They see it, Some people will say, oh, there's no color. Oh, there's color. I'm black, you're blue, you're green, you're black. They exist. We have very varied experiences. The thing is that we have to talk about our differences, but also talk about commonalities. So once it's said, you have 1 minute. The philosophy teacher called Dr. Dinkmeyer says, anytime somebody says anything, you have 1 minute to talk about, respond quickly. You know? So you have 1 minute. Are you sure that it doesn't exist? Are you sure that why it doesn't exist? You know, so it does exist. Because I'm questioning every university in America, once every semester, somebody's going to say something stupid. It's happening in Princeton, it's happening in Yale, it's happening in Minnesota. Maybe this is happening here. I'm not so sure. Maybe my boss would let me know later on, but I'm quite sure it is here. Maybe something, you know, because it doesn't really matter whether you are the president of the university or the custodian in working, you know. Somebody's always going to say something stupid because they believe that you got there because of something else, or you are poor and you're working because of something else. So that language does exist. If it didn't exist, this would not be America. We've not finished with racism. That's why we're still battling with intersectionality in terms of ability, religion, and all that stuff. It still exists. So I don't believe. So you have 1 minute to let them know that something exists and school them up upon it. It's a learning process. You have always 1 minute. It's the words they use. You guys are a silent group now. You make me nervous now. And yes.
Yeah, ask another one.
Oh wow, I like that.
So next year, the School of Special Education will be introducing the first cohort in this, the intellectual disabilities program. KU recently got a grant for students with intellectual disabilities to come and do transitional education here at the University of Kansas. I don't know if I was just wondering if you have any experience with working at any of your prior institutions with working with students with intellectual disabilities, and I guess how is that program going to fit in if given the position as director of the OMA?
Well, I think naturally those divisions must also exist to be supportive of the institution, or the institution must support it. So they are part and parcel of the fabric of society, of the academic environment. So depending on what our bosses say, depends on what Dr. Thomas or those in power, if they really want to add it to the office and they have the resources, I think they have that prerogative, depends on them. But they're always welcome, because I think this is part of all the isms that exist. You know, I was born, I was a stammerer, so it takes me, I have to speak quickly sometimes in terms of particular words. So those things exist, you know, about people. So I think I'm open to, you know, being added on. It's a challenge, but there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I guess we're all human beings and we need to support each other. I think that's perfect. So I think depending on our bosses or your bosses. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, you mentioned briefly the program that you had developed at New Mexico, going to Oakland and other schools to recruit students. Could you tell us a little bit more about that program, and if you envision doing something similar here at KU, what it would look like here?
I think I like to do that depending on what Dr. Thomas and the person in charge of enrollment. I think it's important because, you know, we need access. And I think Dr. Thomas will agree with me that, you know, the more we have, you know, there's something called critical race theory and critical mass theory. The more people see people of different color or particular ethnicity on campus, the more it becomes beneficial in terms of compositional and structural diversity. So I'm hoping that Dr. Thomas will allow me to assist the admissions department or maybe offices to help recruit. It could be a new initiative because it can bring much more to the table in terms of understanding pluralism and identity. And I'm quite sure the president is going to throw much more money in it. I'm quite sure we all need it because, as I said, some people like salad, but I like jambalaya. So the more we know each other's food, I'm just being facetious here, but the more we know about each other in terms of diversity and pluralism, the better it is for the future. I also want you guys to remember two things. So, Manny Marable's experience at NMSU People not knowing who Cesar Chavez was, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Then also remembering that we had 1 hour. Everybody in the room had 1 hour. If in this room, that means you wanted to talk to somebody, date somebody, go to eat somebody's food, everybody in this room, 1 hour, it would have been different. If you read history, it will tell you so. So psychologically, I think literature says we want to get closer in terms of behavior. We need to understand religion. So those things are important. So I think my experience is that I had to go bring those folks from the worst of the worst and bring them to a particular environment so that they can become scholars and teach. Some of my student leaders have the suave, have the moxie. So actually we turn them from student leaders into working in admissions who help with the recruiting process. So we do have lots of students coming from particular areas. I did the same thing in Minnesota, so I'm hoping that, and actually you guys are right smack in the middle of America. So we can go to where? Topeka, we can go to across the river into Kansas City, then we can go to Wichita. Maybe we can go to Denver, we got it. So it's only 5 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, we can do it. I believe so. But the question is the institution prepared to hire people who are quite different, who can be role models, and be tutors and mentors for those coming in. That's very important. So I leave that to the bosses. I'm hoping that I can support Dr. Thomas and others in terms of helping with recruitment, retention, and also even with fundraising. I think it's important. In our school, we do fundraising when we have the step show. I used to be in a reggae band when I was in Minnesota. We had the faculty reggae band, the student reggae band. So here we can get a gospel group. I really don't pay. My left hand is gone right now. My right knee is screwed up because of soccer. So we can have some forms of things that we can all do. And so I'm hoping that whatever Dr. Thomas says, I can get some people who are dancers, and we can do that. I always say we can spice up a campus if we really want to. It's our choice. And so, and I'm always ready for spice. So I think, any more questions?
Time for one more.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you bring in students who don't normally go into a multicultural resource center, office of multicultural?
So what do I do with students who don't really go into multicultural centers?
Students who need the education you all provide and services who don't step in the doors.
Well, I think first and foremost, many a time they might not even know about it. So we have to do a good job, or number one, the institution has to do a good job in letting people become aware that we exist. And then we also have to do another good job in terms of promoting the office. Thirdly, they might be scared of the office because they have heard all these stories about diversity or pluralism. So there might be, that aspect of, people are scared of, offices like that. They mean we are La Raza, we want to burn the world or some stuff, things like that. So I do believe that it's not a question of they don't know. Many a time they are aware. But the question is, what do? We have to entice them, coax them. We have to have programming events that exist. Mr. Gomez was telling me that the Tunnel of Oppression is excellent. People come to it. But maybe we need to have many conferences. We need to have events that can entice students to come to the center. It's not a scary place. I thought, Mr. Gomez, stand up. I want to see something. Are you a scary man? He's not a scary man. So thank you so much. He's a nice gentleman. So I do believe that there's a lot of things we could do to make places wonderful. So it's a question of PR work and having the patience to let people know who we are and what we are and the unique contributions that we can bring to the institution. I think that's what we can do.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yobo.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Again, for those of you who want to share your thoughts and comments, if you go to the Provost website and go to Provost Office searches, and you can look at the candidate evaluation form there. We look forward to reading everyone's comments and thoughts. You have until next Monday, December 7th, to complete them.